For 8 straight years, the Atlanta Falcons have been the team nobody takes seriously. 8 years of watching everyone else in their division celebrate while they sat at home. But right now, inside that building in Flowery Branch, something is happening that nobody is ready to talk about. Matt Ryan is back, not throwing passes, but running the front office. Kevin Stefanski is running the sideline. And a general manager named Ian Cunningham just rebuilt this entire roster with 16 new players, almost all on one-year deals, without spending big money on a single one. That is not a team trying to win right now. That is something much bigger hiding in plain sight. The quarterback room costs a total of $7.5 million. The new running back shares a last name with the best running back in football. Yeah, the pass rush just set a franchise record with 57 sacks, yet their best young edge rusher might not even play this season. And instead of panicking, Cunningham just kept quietly signing prove-it players, stacking depth and protecting every dollar of cap space for a year that feels way too far away. Nobody in Atlanta is talking about a Super Bowl. The people running this team are not even pretending that is the goal. And honestly, that might be the smartest thing this franchise has done in a decade. So what exactly is the plan? Because when you look at every move this front office has made, from the quarterbacks to the backfield to the defensive additions, a very clear picture starts to form. And it all begins with how Ian Cunningham is spending money in a way no Falcons general manager has ever spent it before. Say the old Atlanta would have chased big names, handed out huge contracts, and prayed for a miracle. This Atlanta is doing the opposite, and the quarterback room they built might tell you everything about where this team is really headed. Most teams spend the spring convincing themselves their quarterback is the answer. The Atlanta Falcons spent it making sure they have options no matter what happens. Michael Penix Jr. is still recovering from a torn ACL, the player a previous front office traded up to draft. Tua Tagovailoa walked in on a veteran minimum deal after Miami let him go. Trevor Siemian is the 10-year journeyman who once shared a room with Peyton Manning and knows Kevin Stefanski from Minnesota. 3 quarterbacks, 2 with something to prove, 1 with everything to lose. And the entire room costs less than what most teams pay their backup. What makes this fascinating is the real competition brewing between Penix and Tua. Tua finished 8th in the league last season in end zone accuracy and posted a 62.1% success rate on throws beyond 10 yards since 2023. That kind of precision fits perfectly in a Stefanski offense built on timing. Penix played 10 games before his injury and showed flashes, but never consistently reached the level Atlanta needed. The expected approach gives Penix 4 to 5 games to prove himself. If the results are not there, Tua steps in. Simple, clean, no controversy, just a business decision. But the real genius is not about 2026 at all. It is about what comes after. If Penix emerges as the franchise answer, the Falcons win big on a cheap contract. If Tua earns an affordable extension, they stay flexible. And if neither works out, Atlanta enters the 2027 draft class, projected to be loaded with high-end quarterback talent with the picks and the cap space to go get their guy. Optionality at the most important position in sports is rare, and the offense does not stop at quarterback. When Tyler Allgeier left in free agency, the Falcons lost a running back who quietly gave them over 500 rushing yards last season and never fumbled. Finding someone to fill that role was not optional. It was urgent. And the name Ian Cunningham chose might be the most obvious signing of the entire offseason. Brian Robinson Jr. walks into a backfield where the starter is Bijan Robinson. 2 Robinsons, same last name. Completely different styles. And that contrast is exactly what makes this pairing dangerous. Brian Robinson Jr. is 27 years old, 6'1", 225 pounds, and signed a 1-year deal worth $2.5 million. He rushed for over 700 yards in 3 of his first 4 NFL seasons. He was 6th in rushing success rate across the entire league in 2024. He carried the ball 15 times for 77 yards and 2 touchdowns in a playoff game for the Commanders just over a year ago. This is not a player who needs to be the star. He needs to be the workhorse when Bijan rests. Move the chains, pick up the extra yard, finish runs with violence. That is exactly who Brian Robinson Jr. has been his entire career. Behind the 2 Robinsons, Nathan Carter and Carlos Washington Jr. fill out the RB3 and RB4 spots, giving Atlanta real depth for the first time in years at this position. And the biggest news might still be ahead. Adam Schefter reported that Bijan Robinson is expected to sign a long-term extension this offseason alongside Jahmyr Gibbs and Devon Achane, locking down arguably the best running back in the entire NFL for years to come. The backfield is set, the ground game has an identity, but the weapons surrounding these quarterbacks go far beyond just the run game. The 2025 season exposed a brutal truth about the Atlanta Falcons offense. When Drake London went down with an injury and missed 5 games, the entire passing attack fell apart. There was nobody behind him capable of carrying the load. The production vanished, the rhythm disappeared, and the quarterback, no matter who it was, had nowhere to throw. That is the kind of collapse that cost you a season, and the Falcons know it. So fixing the receiver room was not just a priority, it was a necessity that could define whether this whole plan works. Jahan Dotson is the headliner addition, a former first-round pick out of Penn State who was selected 16th overall by the Washington Commanders in 2022. He brings legitimate speed and route running ability to line up opposite London. Olamide Zaccheaus returns to Atlanta on a 2-year deal after spending 4 seasons with the franchise from 2019 through 2022. He knows the city. He knows the culture. At tight end, Austin Hooper comes home on a 1-year contract, reuniting with the front office that Matt Ryan now leads. Kyle Pitts stays in the building after receiving the franchise tag, keeping Atlanta's most talented pass catcher on the roster for at least 1 more year. The identity Stefanski wants to build is clear: no hero ball, no desperate deep shots into double coverage. A point guard quarterback delivering the football on time, on target, to receivers who are in the right spots. If the health holds, this passing attack has more depth and more options than anything Atlanta has fielded since the Matt Ryan glory days. But the offense is only half the equation, and what is happening on the defensive side of the ball carries just as much drama. The Atlanta Falcons recorded 57 sacks last season under defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich. So that number shattered the franchise record and completely transformed how opposing offenses had to prepare for this team. Jalen Walker emerged as a legitimate force on the edge, and he enters 2026 locked in as a starter with the expectation of taking another step forward. But the player who made the biggest impact as a pass rusher last season was James Pierce Jr., who posted 10.5 sacks in his first NFL season and finished as a Defensive Rookie of the Year finalist. His availability for 2026 remains uncertain due to an ongoing legal situation and a potential league suspension. The Falcons are not commenting publicly, but their moves in free agency tell you everything about how seriously they are preparing for life without him on the field. Samson Ebukam signed to provide proven production, bringing a 10-sack season already on his resume from his time with the Colts. Azeez Ojulari returns to his home state of Georgia after setting a Giants rookie sack record earlier in his career and still carrying serious upside at a young age. Braylon Trice is the wild card. Drafted with undeniable talent but held back by recurring knee injuries that have cost him 2 full seasons, he remains a developmental piece who could become a difference maker if his body cooperates. Together, this group needs to keep the sack total above 50 even if Pierce misses significant time. The secondary has its own competition brewing. Billy Bowman tore his Achilles in November and may not be ready for Week 1. If he cannot go, Sidney Brown, acquired via trade from the Eagles, is the favorite to start at nickel over Darian Holmes. At inside linebacker, Christian Harris and Channing Tindall bring fresh competition behind Troy Anderson. The talent on this defense is real. The depth is better than it has been in years. And that matters especially heading into a draft where this team has some serious limitations to work around. Most NFL teams walk into April knowing their first-round pick is the easiest one to hit on. The highest floor, the safest bet. The Atlanta Falcons do not have that luxury in 2026. They gave up their first-rounder to the Los Angeles Rams when they traded up to select James Pierce Jr. in the 2025 draft. What remains is a 5-pick haul starting at number 48 overall, followed by picks at 79, 122, 215, and 231. That is not a lot of ammunition. And for a new general manager trying to put his stamp on this roster, every single selection carries enormous weight. But here is what makes Ian Cunningham unpredictable. He has talked openly about valuing draft capital and wanting more swings at the plate. That language strongly suggests he could trade down from pick 48, potentially multiple times, to accumulate extra selections for this year and stockpile future picks heading into 2027. The priority positions are clear. An outside cornerback to develop behind A.J. Terrell as a long-term answer opposite him. Interior defensive line depth to keep the front rotation fresh. Another inside linebacker to compete for snaps, and possibly a late-round running back or edge rusher to build for the future. None of these picks need to produce day one starters because Cunningham already addressed the immediate depth issues through free agency. That is the key difference between this regime and the ones before it. Terry Fontenot's 2025 class produced 4 immediate contributors and raised fan expectations to an unrealistic standard. Cunningham is not chasing that kind of instant impact. He wants players who develop on their rookie contracts and peak by year 2 or 3, right when this team expects to truly compete. And everything about this draft strategy only makes sense when you understand what 2027 really means for the future of this franchise. Every single move this front office has made points to 1 year. Not 2026, not some distant fantasy 5 seasons from now, 2027. That is when the Atlanta Falcons get their first-round pick back. That is when the projected $127 million in cap space becomes real spending power. That is when the compensatory picks from all the players who walked in free agency this year start rolling in. And that is when Ian Cunningham, Matt Ryan, and Kevin Stefanski will finally have every resource they need to make the kind of aggressive moves that change a franchise overnight. Everything happening right now is the setup. The foundation pour before the building goes up. Think about what this team will know by the end of this season. They will know if Michael Penix Jr. is the long-term quarterback or if Tua Tagovailoa earned himself an affordable extension. They will know which of their 16 one-year signings deserve to stay and which ones get replaced with upgrades. They will know if Kyle Pitts and Jesse Bates are part of the future core or if they become trade assets to bring back even more draft capital. They will know exactly where this roster stands, with no guessing, no blind optimism, and no leftover commitments clouding the picture. That kind of clarity heading into a massive offseason is worth more than any single free agent signing could ever provide. For a fan base that has suffered through 8 consecutive losing seasons, asking for 1 more year of patience feels cruel. But for the first time since the Matt Ryan era at quarterback, there is a real plan with real logic behind it. The NFC South remains wide open. The coaching staff commands respect around the league. The core talent at running back, receiver, safety, and pass rusher is legitimate. If the bridge year goes the way this front office believes it can, 2027 will not just be another offseason. It will be the moment the Atlanta Falcons stop rebuilding and start contending. This is the part nobody wants to hear. After 8 years of nothing, the Atlanta Falcons are asking for 1 more season of waiting. But here is what makes this different from every other time they asked for patience. There is no desperation in this front office. No pressure to win now to save jobs. No massive contract handed out to a veteran quarterback hoping for a miracle. Ian Cunningham walked into a building that had been making emotional decisions for a decade and replaced every instinct with cold, calculated discipline. He raised the floor of this roster without pretending the ceiling changed overnight. He built depth where there was none, and he protected every single dollar for the moment that actually matters. The NFC South is still wide open. The coaching staff is respected around the league. The core of Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Jesse Bates, and that pass rush is legitimate. If the bridge year goes better than expected, this team could surprise people. But even if it does not, the foundation will be stronger than anything this franchise has had in years. There will be no dead money regrets, no contracts that outlast the player. Just a roster full of hungry players on short leashes competing for their futures and a front office with the freedom to act when the time is right. 2027 is not a promise, it is a plan. And for the first time in a very long time, the Atlanta Falcons actually have one worth believing in. The question is whether the fan base can survive one more year of almost and not quite. Because if they can, what comes next might finally look like something they have not seen since the last time this franchise was truly relevant. The waiting is almost over. The real Falcons are about to stand up.